Welcome to Glossary Galore. In this series, I'll be going over many definitions and keywords regarding a certain topic, starting off with population genetics in the first episode. Population genetics is a branch of biology that studies the genetic variation in a population over time. The population referred here is a group of individuals that can reproduce with each other that live in a specific location. Within this population, there is a gene pool, which is all the genes and alleles of a given population. A gene is a segment of DNA that determines your traits, such as determining your eye color. Alleles are different versions of a gene, so the alleles for your eye color trait could be one allele showing brown eyes and one allele showing blue eyes. The allele frequency is how often a given allele appears in a gene pool. These alleles can be dominant, recessive, codominant, and incomplete dominant, which make up your genotype, the set of alleles and genes that you have. Those alleles will then determine your physical traits that you show, or your phenotype. Dominant alleles will overrule recessive alleles, which can be illustrated using a diagram called the Punnett square. Here, the allele for brown eyes, or capital B, is dominant, while the allele for blue eyes, or lowercase b, is recessive. So whenever we get a genotype with brown eyes, we will only have a genotype of brown eyes. But if we get a genotype with two blue eye alleles, then we will get a genotype of blue eyes. In the case of codominance, both phenotypes are expressed. Take this Punnett square of a flower, with the R allele making the flower red and B allele making the flower blue. When a red and blue flower are crossed, we will only have the genotype of RB, but the phenotype will be a flower that is half red and half blue. In the case of incomplete dominance, both phenotypes are mixed. Taking the same flower, crossing a red and blue flower will yield us the RB genotype again, but this time, the phenotype will be a purple flower, a mix of red and blue, instead of half and half. Most phenotypes are actually codominant and incomplete dominant, instead of being strictly dominant. Now, the word that we've all been waiting for, evolution, which is the changing traits that are inheritable over generations. This image right here is not evolution, this is evolution. Noticing the different beaks of the finches, which are all inheritable traits that get passed on to the next generation. There are 5 evolutionary forces driving this phenomena: natural selection, mutation, non-random mating, gene flow, and genetic drift. Natural selection is a process of individuals who are more adapted to the environment surviving and passing on their traits to the next generation. Those individuals often have more fitness, which is how successful they are at reproducing and adapting. Mutation is a random change in an individual's DNA, hence changing their alleles. Non-random mating is when individuals choose their mates based on phenotypic traits, instead of by pure chance. For example, you might choose to mate with someone who has a specific religious belief or hobby, instead of picking a random partner. Gene flow is the introduction of new genetic material, usually from one population to another. A common way to achieve this is through the migration of new individuals from another population. Genetic drift is a change of allele frequencies in mostly small populations due to chance. Some alleles can become fixated or take over the entire population. For example, in a small population, the genotype for blue eyes can become fixated and everybody will have blue eyes in that population. Drift can be caused by the bottleneck effect, which is when a population gets sharply decreased in size from a natural disaster, for example, or caused by the founder effect, which is when a small group splits off from the main population to form their own colony. This can all lead to inbreeding, which is the mating of closely related individuals. This is harmful since it leads to inbreeding depression, which reduces the survival and fitness of the resulting offspring. A recessive gene that makes an individual susceptible to a disease may not be a problem at first, but it could be brought to light through enough inbreeding. With evolution out of the way, our last term to cover is the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, which predicts that in the absence of evolution, genetic variation will remain the same. So it assumes no selection, no mutation, random mating, no gene flow, and infinite population. The frequency of genotypes in this population can be calculated like this, where P is a dominant allele, while Q is a recessive allele. This shows that dominant traits don't always increase from one generation to the next, even though they take over recessive traits. And there we have it. Since this is the first episode, I will appreciate any feedback and criticisms to make it better. And please let me know if I miss any definitions. I'll add them in the video's description. As always, I hope that y'all have learned something interesting today. Thank you for watching, and stay hydrated.